Welcome, all listeners, viewers, and subscribers to another episode of What's the Day Live. Today, I'm joined with Ms. Deborah Heiser, and the topic for today is going to be the National Mentoring Month. So, the National Mentoring Month has been around for a couple of decades now. It started in 2002 by an organization which goes by the website mentoring.org. They have the mission of spreading the benefits of mentoring and how these relationships can build people and get them through life, right? Meeting the right people and things like that. So I'm joined today with Ms. Deborah Heiser, who is an applied developmental psychologist, the CEO of the Mentor Project, and the author of a book called The Mentorship Edge. So, Deborah, would you like to take the stage and tell us more about what you do?
Sure. Thank you for having me on. I am an applied developmental psychologist. I look at everything that we have to look forward to as we get older. And part of that is giving back to others. And mentoring is a form of that. So I'm CEO of the Mentor Project, where we have about 100 people who are top experts in their fields, from astronauts to artists, who give back their expertise to students around the world for free. And just in 2024, we were able to give nearly $3 million of mentorship hours away for free, which is pretty amazing, I think. And I also wrote the book, The Mentorship Edge, to give a good definition of what mentoring is, because it's such a loosely talked about topic that it's confusing for people. It gets overused in many ways and then underutilized in the most effective ways that we can engage in it to get the most benefit out of it.
So let's talk about the mentorship relationship, right? So great brief. Thanks for telling all the viewers about your great work that you've been doing. So mentorship as a relationship, right? We have one person who is the mentee and then another person who is the mentor. But even if it goes all through, right, finding the correct mentor is something, it's like finding the right relationship. You look for the correct partner. Uh, how do you decide that even as a facilitator, if you have to go and look at two people and say that these are the perfect fit to be a mentor and mentee, how would you say that? Let's start from there and then we can go forward.
So, mentorship is something that is more than just a relationship with two people, one who's above them and one who is, below them. Really, it requires five things. I like to think of it almost like ingredients. Like if you were to make a dish, like a dessert, and you were to leave out sugar, it might look the same, but it's not going to taste the same. So mentorship is similar. It has to start with generativity, where the mentor wants to give back something that they are an expert in. So a lot of people, they want to give back. They want to give back something that's important to them, something that they feel is valuable.
Yeah,
But there has to be somebody that wants that information. That's the
that's right.
mentee. So a lot of times the mentee wants something, but it's not always what somebody is giving.
Yeah.
That's not going to make a mentoring relationship. It has to be that someone is ready to receive and somebody wants to give. And there can't be an expectation by the mentor for something in return, that the mentee is going to do something for them, that there's going to be any pay or reward or anything like that. The next thing is intrinsic motivation. The mentor has to want to do this, again, without any pay or reward or award, anything like that. Otherwise, it's a job. You're an advisor, you're a coach, you're something else. It's not bad, it's just a different thing.
Yeah.
So, the example I like to give to people with this is, because it sounds very natural, that this should be the case, but it gets lost in translation, particularly in the workplace. Because people will say, well, we don't require a person to mentor at the workplace, but they note if you are mentoring, and if you're not, you might not get a great performance evaluation. Somebody might not maybe promote you or say you're interacting with others in the way that they want you to. Likewise, you might be a mentee, and if you're not hooked up with a mentor, someone might look negatively at you. So
Yep.
by removing that extrinsic reward for mentorship, it is allowing mentorship to really take place. So what the intrinsic motivator is like if I were to say to you, hey, would you like to volunteer your time at a soup kitchen, giving out food and beverage to hungry, thirsty people? And you said, yeah, that sounds great. People who do that get a great feeling from doing that. Now, if I said to you, now go volunteer your time at Starbucks, giving out food and beverage to hungry, thirsty people. Most people don't want to do that because they feel like they should get paid for it. It wouldn't have the same feeling
Yeah.
because everybody else is getting paid, but not you.
Yeah.
So that's how it feels at work. It feels like you're volunteering at Starbucks when mentoring has that extrinsic motivator. The
Mm-hmm.
next thing is it has to be a meaningful connection. When we go to make friends with people, we do not, not everybody becomes our friend. A
Yes.
person on paper could look like an amazing person, but maybe we don't really feel like they're the right person for us. That's not a failure.
Mm-hmm.
That's just not a match. And the same happens with mentorship. A lot of times people are matched with someone and it's not a great connection. And
Yeah.
then it feels like a failure, and it's not. It has to have a meaningful connection, and a person should be connecting with somebody that they really feel like, wow, I want to carry this information this person is giving me. And likewise, the mentor should be saying, wow, I know this person is going to be taking my valuable information and doing what I think would be great with it.
Yeah.
And then trust. If you're a mentor and you think that the mentee might be stealing your idea, that's not going to work. And likewise, if you're a mentee and you feel like you better do whatever the mentor says, or you better be engaged in this, and you better not tell them you don't know what you're doing or you aren't able to be vulnerable, it's not going to work. If you feel like if I tell my boss or somebody above me that I don't know what I'm doing, that they're going to fire you or they won't give you a promotion or what they won't give you a good performance evaluation, it's not mentoring then. And finally, there has to be a goal. So if you're just chit-chatting, that's not mentoring.
Yes.
A goal can be a one-time goal. It can shift and change throughout, but there needs to be a goal associated with it. And that's really when you look at the mentoring relationship, a lot of times one or two or even three components are missing, but they're calling it mentorship. And then
Mm-hmm.
people are like, I don't know, mentorship is overrated. But if it's really got all those ingredients, it
Mm-hmm.
feels like magic.
So you talked about the last. I'll talk. Let's go backwards. So we'll go from goal and trust. We'll talk about goal and trust first because this is something that people relate to a lot, right? When
Yeah.
trying to talk to people. So what I would say is that the part where you mentioned that vulnerability and showing vulnerability as a mentee or even as a mentor, perhaps, where you can say that I'm sharing some information, that some insight as a mentor that I'm sharing, and I feel that you could use it, but I don't trust you to use it in the correct way or something of that sort. So where does the mentor draw the line, if you want to put it that way, if you could shed some light on that? Should they
If
be?
it doesn't exist, then it's not mentoring.
Hmm.
That might be advising, that could be coaching, that could be something else, but it's not mentoring. So that trust has to be there, and it has to be like an implicit trust. So if you get to a point where you're meeting with somebody and you don't trust them, you usually
Hmm.
know that up front. You usually
Yeah.
know you're going to say, you know what, I am not going to go tell my boss that I don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
If you're the mentee, if you're the mentor and you say, you know what, I'm not sharing this information, I think that person might steal my idea,
Yeah.
or they might run off and go use it elsewhere. You know that up front. That's one of the first things that you know. Then just call it what it is, and it's not being called mentorship. Say, I'm going to be advising this person. But if you feel like, you're at work and your job is saying you better be in a, mentoring relationship,
Hmm.
it's best to say to the person, that to HR or whoever is, in charge of this, to say, listen, I don't feel like I am mentoring. I feel like I'm advising. And that
Yeah.
should be okay. If you say, I'd like to switch this, and here's why. I feel like I can give this without these components and still
That's right.
make progress at work.
So that's what, even in the startup environment, right, where a lot of new young
Oh, yeah.
founders are looking for experienced VCs or
Yep.
co-mentors and co-founders, they have some hitch of a mental block of sharing ideas with VCs, and even
And
if they are
rightfully
looking at them,
so.
yeah. So it becomes a
I
very tricky situation, right? If you would say
it
that.
it is, but I have here's a solution for that. There's not just hierarchical mentoring.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone thinks of mentoring as hierarchical, where you just have
Yeah.
this narrow road, right?
Mm-hmm.
But there's lateral mentoring. It's a term that I coined a while back, years
Yeah.
ago, because most founders and techies and other entrepreneurs don't operate hierarchically. They're starting something. There's no hierarchy. There's just lateral. So
Yeah.
when you have a new idea that you're trying to get out there, you should look laterally to your left and to your right,
Mm-hmm.
because you're going to then be looking at somebody. Maybe it's not a VC that you're going to look at.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to give you an example of how this looks in the workplace and how this looks in people developing things. Bill Cheswick was one of the guys who was the father of the network firewall. So
Mm-hmm.
you and I are speaking right now because of what he did for internet
Right.
security.
Mm-hmm.
So he was at Bell Labs, which is where innovations come from all the time. And his boss said to him, "Listen, I need you to, create a network firewall." And I don't know if it was termed that at the time, whatever it was, he was tasked with that decades ago. And so Bill got as far as he could in what he knew how to do. And like all of us, we only know
Yeah.
what we know. No one creates everything by themselves. So what he did was, this was his job, but he took himself in his office chair and wheelied himself down the hall to Steve Bellevin, another guy who he said, "I know Steve knows this particular kind of engineering that
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I'm going to see if Steve can help me and teach me what he knows so that I can apply it to what I'm doing."
Right.
And Steve didn't have any stake in what Bill was doing. Steve had his own work to do. It wasn't going to benefit Steve in any way to help Bill, but it wasn't going to hurt him either.
Yeah.
So there was none of that trust issue. Nobody was going to look to steal anybody's stuff. This was Bill's job. So Steve did help him, because most
Mm-hmm.
of us want to help people. We make friends at work, or we ask
Yeah.
somebody for help, and they're usually willing to help. So they sat together, and then Steve taught Bill what he knew, and Bill was able with his help to incorporate that into what he was doing. And then the two
Mm-hmm.
of them were able to write the first book on internet security, on network firewalls.
Okay.
And that changed the trajectory of how we do things.
Correct.
That's how it works when you're out as a founder, when you're
Yeah.
out as a person who's an entrepreneur or in tech. You're looking at people who are next to you who know something. If you're a software engineer, you're looking for a hardware engineer. There's no competition there. The vulnerability is able to be freely expressed and accepted by each other. And that's where mentorship has the most explosive impact, is when we're looking at it laterally, not hierarchically, because you can only go up a certain level. And if you think about the skills that most people are looking at within a workplace, it doesn't always translate outside of that work environment,
Yeah.
unless it was Bell Labs and you're trying to make a world changing, new thing. But,
Yeah.
if you're looking at accounting, over the grand,
Scheme of
scheme
things.
of things, that's not something that makes a huge change. But when you think about a new company or a new technology,
Yeah.
that does. And
Yeah.
so that's why lateral is way to go.
Now, you mentioned that as Bill went to another person to seek help and seek mentorship, right? There was a goal in Bill's mind, okay,
Yes.
and it was very important for reaching out to a specific person. But does it always have to be like the end goal? Once the end goal is met, the relationship ends? Because what I understand for a mentor-mentee relationship would be that obviously there would be one specific goal that they would be looking at together, but then there would be so many more things to come together at and then build forward. So where do you draw the line of the relationship, right? Of the mentor-mentee communication and the discussion. Like, they built the internet firewall, but then what after that? How do they continue that? Or will there always be something new goal coming up?
Sometimes there is. They did the internet firewall and then they wrote a book.
Hmm.
Then they stopped working together.
Okay.
They went their separate ways. Are they still friends? Yeah. But they stopped with that mentoring relationship. We can sometimes just need an answer to something and get a one-off. Go to
Hmm.
somebody and say, can you help me with this? An example is I was in graduate school, a fellow graduate student. We were both at externship, which was our first jobs. We were trying to impress our bosses, with
Right.
all the knowledge we had. And a friend called me and she said, hey, I remember you know how to do kappa statistics, and
Hmm.
I don't remember how to do it. I need that for this project I'm doing. So I walked her through how to do the statistic over the phone. She finished her project, went on to do what she did. That was the end of our mentoring relationship. I mentored her. Now, she probably mentored me 16 times when
Hmm.
I had questions on things, but it was a one-off. Now, in the case of a bigger thing, like you're forming a company and you need people to help you with longer term visions, that's a goal that has a longer term goal. In the case of Bill, he had a long term goal or a medium term goal. In the term in terms of my classmate, she just needed one thing so that
Hmm.
she could impress her bosses and show that she knew what she was doing and do something really well. So it depends on where we are. We might say, I just need something right now, and you're going to seek the help of someone and they're going to mentor you through it. Or you might say, I need long-term help with this founding this organization, with a vision, with some kind of skill or value. It could be anything.
So the goal is there, right? But uh, how does this become a meaningful connection? Okay. Because if there are companies that are enforcing a mentor mentee relationship amongst employees, in most cases in a hierarchical order, but then there is always the fact that running in the back of people's minds that this is something that has been enforced upon me. It may or may not be the person that I want to be mentored by. And
Mhm.
then it has been enforced that two people have been put into a situation where they need to talk about the person who is junior as their career progression or things like that. And they might not have that meaningful connection that they might be looking for. So, in specifically in companies where people are put into such situations, how do you suggest people tackle that? I mean, this is a very peculiar thing that obviously happens a lot across the corporate environment. So this is something
They
probably.
should not be calling that mentoring. It should be advising. And I'll give an example of that. All of these examples also are in the book that I wrote
Mhm.
because it's teasing out these ideas that people have. And people are really putting mentoring, the label of mentoring on all kinds of things that over time, in the past decades or
Yeah.
generations, they haven't been labeled that. So if you're in an academic environment or even in a medical environment, you have advisors,
Yeah.
and that person is there, that's part of their job.
Yeah.
Oftentimes an advisor becomes a mentor when they're off the books, and that can often happen. It's because there's a meaningful connection that develops. In the case of Dr. Joel Weinberger, who was a psychology professor at a university, he advised his students. One of his students, he said, wow, this person and she and I are really connecting in a way. She understands the work that I'm doing. I want to now mentor her. So
Mhm.
he mentored her to co-author a book with him. That they moved from advisor advisee to mentor mentee through that authoring of that book. She was no longer his student
Mhm.
advisee. They moved that relationship to mentor mentee, and now they're colleagues. That whole thing shifted. Now, when he was her advisor, that was a different relationship. But it shifted with the meaningful connection. He was like, wow, she gets me. I see promise in her. I know that she's going to take what I'm teaching, and my expertise, and she's going to move it forward. So if you start it though where you are putting the parameters of what a real advisor is
Mhm.
and you're calling it a mentor, then you're doing a disservice to everyone because it
Yeah.
makes the person who's the called a mentor, who's really an advisor, feel like it's a burdensome relationship.
Yeah.
And both mentor and mentee feel like there's expectations and the potential of failure there. When mentorship doesn't have failure, advisor and advisee does, but mentor mentee doesn't.
Because yeah, that failure part that you just mentioned, that becomes kind of a KPI when people are put into that situation in the
Yeah.
corporate structure, and that is where the whole motivation of it might be an advisor advisee situation, but the company wants to call it a mentor mentee
Yeah.
relationship, right? And that is where they give motivation that why is your mentee not progressing in their career.
Exactly. Yes,
So
you have like like if you're an advisor, you have the goal of making sure that your advisee picks the right classes or that they're doing something.
mhm,
That is part of your job. Now, I truly think that when mentoring programs that are put together that are really putting together advising
mhm,
programs, they're doing a disservice to the employees. And it's almost like trying to squeeze something extra for
mhm,
free out of an employee. And that should not be the case. If you are an advisor, there's nothing wrong with that.
mhm.
It's like devaluing advisor. But people want to say, oh, people are intrinsically doing things because they want to do it, or they have an enforced pro bono hours where you're supposed to go mentor in enforced pro bono hours.
Yeah.
That's really not mentoring. Unless the person says, hey, I'd like to go mentor, but if you have to give pro bono hours, that's not mentoring. That's
Mhm.
something else. That is a required extrinsically motivated thing that you're going to get in trouble if you are not giving away hours for free to somebody.
Yeah. So that's, uh, I mean, that's a few things I've seen across different companies, and then I've seen people crib about, and then things like that. But then it happens, right? Uh, then we have the part where we want to create value out of the relationship, right? In an external environment where a person naturally goes out and seeks help, of course, there will be something that comes out of the whole mentor mentee situation because we have a particular goal, we trust that person, and then we see a connection with them, and then obviously there will something will be built across with, be it creating a new organization or just progressing in academics and career. Now, the National Mentorship Month is all about creating awareness, recruiting mentors, promoting mentoring growth, right? Um, could you just tell us now? This is a little off the track. What we've been discussing. I just want to know how have you been celebrating National Mentoring Month over the years, or when was the first time you may have celebrated it, and how has the celebration changed over the years, decades, or perhaps?
Well, I think, we celebrate National Mentoring Month every month because we're a mentoring organization, but
Yeah.
National Mentoring Month is the time to really reflect because you can get into a groove with mentoring and you
Mhm.
start to just take it for granted. It's a time to reflect and say, wow, I really could, if as long as I'm more aware of how often I give to people, how often I'm mentoring, because we often don't realize that. How often has somebody asked you for help and you walked them through something and helped them with something and you just sloughed it off? Well, you don't get the good feeling from that. And you're not likely to look for that again in the future. It's just happened. So I like to think of National Mentoring Month as a time to say, I'm going to look for opportunities to mentor and I'm going to look for opportunities to be mentored. And that's really as simple as looking to your left or to your right, but making sure that you do that and you're aware of that allows you to have those good feelings that are what make us live longer, healthier, happier lives. That's the benefit of engaging in mentorship, not just the outcome of what we have,
Mhm.
from that interaction, but the long-term physical and emotional benefits that we receive from it. That's what I think of as is kind of like, um, I guess, re-engaging with mentorship from the theory of it.
Mhm. Now, but then again, from the lateral mentoring thing that you mentioned, right? And how you helped your colleague, classmate for their project. Um, I don't know. I mean, how do you know that when somebody is seeking help, that is just a one-off situation where you're just helping them and slipping it off? Where you said, right, you mentor someone and slip it off like it was nothing. But then how do you realize that you have actually mentored someone? I mean, it could just have been a simple call for help, okay, be it in office or be it in class. Your colleague or your classmate could be just asking for help on a specific thing, and you just help them through, run them through it, and then, but then where do you see it becoming a mentor-mentee situation?
That is when you have an expertise. If I call you and I say, I understand that you have this expertise in podcasting. I'd like you to
Mhm.
tell me how to do this. Can you help me? I have a certain level of knowledge. You're an expert.
Mhm.
When you help me, you've just mentored me. I wouldn't be able to move to that next level without you. You become an integral part in my journey.
Okay.
And that's where people will say, but it was a nothing. I'm not going to give myself credit for it.
Yeah.
You should be. You should be saying, I just mentored that person in that one-off experience. That's what the lateral is. Lateral is we're engaging in it all the time,
Mhm.
but we tend to never give ourselves credit. We give way too much credit for hierarchical. We call things mentoring that aren't when we're in hierarchical
Mhm.
mentoring, but when we're in lateral mentoring, we're like, oh, yeah, I was nice. Yeah, I was. Well, why were you nice? It was because you liked the person. It was because you trusted the person. It was
Mhm.
because you wanted to give a piece of yourself to live on in that person.
Yeah.
It's because they came to you with a goal. It's because all of those components were there. If you slough that off and say, yeah, I just gave something away. It would be like if you said, I'm going to just give out $1 every time I see somebody in a meaningless sort of way.
Okay.
Well, if you give $1 that you feel is meaningful to somebody, is going to change their life, doesn't that have a different feeling? That
Yes,
has
yes.
that has a different experience for us. We can feel good about it. We can say, wow, that person ate, or wow, that person was able to go get something they really wanted.
Yeah.
That means something to us. So why deny yourself that with regard to mentorship if it truly is, even if it's a one-off?
I mean, this changes my perspective of how I've been helping colleagues and classmates across the years. So, I mean, it happens on a regular basis then. I mean, because obviously someone is better at a particular topic in class or in a particular aspect
Mhm,
in office, and then you seek out help and then you
mhm.
create a better environment for everybody. So that's all about mentoring, right? Um, so what I came to know that the National Mentoring Month is also recognized by the US president and administration. So they also do some other programs throughout the year. And there are very specific days that are celebrated across the Mentoring Month. Like I Am a Mentor Day, the International Mentoring Day, which is celebrated on January 17th, and Thank Your Mentor Day. Now, specifically this Thank Your Mentor Day, I don't know. I mean, if what I've been looking at is as general gestures of help, right, in the past. And now, if you look at every situations of these as specific to mentor-mentee situations, then how would you express thanks? I mean, to the person that helped you out or mentored you, perhaps. I mean, if you want to put it that
You
way.
can say, thank you. You helped me. It
Yeah.
made a difference. When I got to hear from my classmate
Mhm.
that she got her project done and her bosses were happy with what she did, I felt good.
Yeah.
I mean, this was decades ago. I still remember it. Now, the same has happened in other ways where I've asked people for help countless, countless, countless times. And I feel it's my job to thank a person when they've helped me,
Mhm.
because it feels good to the person. That's really our job as mentor and mentee is to say thank you and to, offer when we see someone who needs help, right? To say, I'm going to mentor you. And that's when we can say, hey, um, this is helping with the acknowledgement because I guarantee you, if just you
Hmm.
start thanking everybody who helps you and you say, wow, it made a difference to me, they're going to feel good and they're going to want to keep
Yep.
doing that. We're naturally built to want to help people.
Hmm. So thanks for that. I mean, it's changed quite a few perspectives for me, and I'm guessing for the listeners and viewers as well, it will be an eye opener of many sorts, where they look at the mentor-mentee relationship from a new perspective and understand finer intricacies and things that they should be looking for when looking for a mentor or for a mentee, depending on the situation that they are in their life. So thanks for joining me in, Deborah. And it was great having you on the podcast on this episode today. I wish you luck on your with your organization and your book. Hope it sells out and you have a great success with that. For the listeners and viewers, I'd love to know what you think about the episode and what you would be doing this National Mentoring Month. And if you liked it, do like the video. If you have some comments, if you have anything specific on your mind, do leave a comment, and don't forget to subscribe. So yeah, thanks for joining in. Thanks for joining, Deborah, and we'll see when we can discuss about this once again in the future.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Same.
And happy National Mentoring Month.
Same to you.